All right, well, welcome back to the All Access podcast. I'm really excited to have my dear friend and All Access member, Tom Dosch, with us. Tom is the co-founder and principal at Dosch Marshall Real Estate, DMRE. They're a market leader in land brokerage services for multifamily, residential, and industrial lands. And he's also a founding member of 100X Harvest, a giving community, and a sponsor of All Access. So 100X Harvest helps make All Access possible and our fund free and available to anyone who wants to make the most impact they can with their giving. Tom, thanks for being an All Access member, and thanks for taking the time to jump on this podcast.
Yeah, Lane, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, this will be fun. I've been looking forward to this. We were talking about this, before we started the recording, but our hope at All Access is just to accelerate this mission of the Great Commission, Great Commandment by helping donors make the most impact they can from right where they are. And Tom, I really want people to hear not only your perspective on how to give well, but also what you're doing, which I found super fascinating. And I think more people should hear about what you're doing and how you're doing it. So I'd love to hear that. First, remind me, Tom, where you grew up?
Yeah, so I kind of grew up all over because my dad was in oil and gas. So I'll tell people I moved, it was 8 or 9 times before the end of high school. So it's like every couple of years we would move. He would get transferred. It was all in the States, but I lived in Montana for about 7 years. So that was a pretty formative time for me. I'm in the mountains right now. We're doing this podcast. I'm in Colorado. So I get to the mountains as often as I can now that I live in Texas. I think Montana was a big part of that. But I've lived in Texas most of my life. So outside of Montana, Houston for a number of years, and then went to school at Texas A&M, so College Station for several years. And then my family now is in the Dallas area. So I'd say I'm a Texan, but I get to the mountains as often as I can.
Yeah, well, so do most Texans. I feel like Colorado is, it's Texas.
It's not a bad drive, and I've got 5 little kids, so it's like we're looking at places where we can pile in the Suburban and we can just hit the road and do it in one day. So that's why Colorado's a great option for us.
Yeah. Okay, first, before we get into the giving, what's your tactic on driving with young kids? Are you one of the over the night guys?
I'm not. No, I'm just get up early, try to be pretty packed up the night before, and then if it's a 12-hour drive. My kids are like road warriors, so we leave the house probably around 6 or 7, and we're trying to like beat that Google time. So if it says 12 hours, like even with the stops, we're pretty consistent. So the other day we beat the Google time, even with like 3 or 4 stops. But we're packing sandwiches, like we're saving and very economical on the time as much as possible. And that works out pretty good.
That's pretty impressive. That's crazy. All right, so you went to A&M. How did you? Why A&M?
So a big part of that was probably just my older siblings. So I'm one of 7. And so my older siblings had gone to A&M. It was a good school, conservative. I've been visiting them. Sorry, Lane. Lost my camera there for a second. I've been visiting them, at school for a number of years and really enjoyed Texas A&M. And so, just ended up there, met my wife there. So very fortunate for my time there.
Nice. And then, tell us about after that. I want to hear kind of your professional career, and then we'll get into the giving side. But after A&M, what's the storyline between then and now?
So after A&M, I started investment banking. So I was a finance major at A&M, did that for only about a year and a half, and really did not enjoy it. Didn't feel like I was gifted in those areas, wasn't passionate about the work, and then got into real estate. My older brother was doing land brokerage at the time, and so got into real estate in 2012 with him and his business partner, and we've been doing that ever since. We started our own company about 8 years ago, and we've expanded across the state.
Nice, really cool, awesome.
I look like an angel here, so I'm just going to flip around so that
you're good.
So the lighting's a little better. There we go.
Now, so let's get into the giving side. I want to hear more about 100X Harvest and what you're doing there. But before all of that, like why? What led you to have the such unique perspective on giving, and I would say a really redemptive perspective on giving. What was the origin story there?
Yeah, it was interesting. I got married really young, right out of college, and Jackie and we didn't have any money. We were saving as much as we could. We had a lot of student debt between really the two of us, and so we weren't thinking a lot about giving initially. And then my older brother challenged me and said, even though you guys have debt, like you shouldn't just be saving to pay off your debt. You should also be giving and trusting the Lord that that's something we're called to do as believers. So we started to do that in just a small way. We started tithing, and we saw God provide like right away. And then that really just led to us wanting to do more and more things that were eternal. So probably the biggest change from going from tithing to trying to be even more generous was going overseas and actually experiencing the global church and seeing like what God was doing in Africa and seeing what he was doing in the Middle East. And we just started meeting Christians that we were just mentored by, encouraged by, impacted by in incredible ways. And they encouraged us to just want to be more generous. And I think we saw for probably the first time, generosity is less about kind of guilt or something that we're supposed to do as Christians, and more, it was exciting. It was really fun to see how it was impacting the lives of these people that we were with and how they were using it and how God was using it. And we got to be a part of that. And so I think that was probably happened over a couple of years, just getting to go and see. It was before we had kids. And so we had more opportunities to do that. And that led us to just thinking more and more about that's more important to us than buying a house. So for a long time, we just, rented an apartment and tried to keep our life, always below our means so that we could do more things like that and support more people. And when you interact with people that don't have anything, but they're so joyful because they have the Lord and a relationship with him, it really changes your perspective on life back here in the States and just everything that we have and the abundance, especially living in a place like Houston or a place like Dallas and being in real estate where, we're around these large developments where it's always nicer and nicer and nicer every time. And you're targeting, the best office clientele, the best apartment clientele. And so it's really eye-opening to us. And, we were really blessed. We had a lot of mentors that came around us and just encouraged us, missionaries, but also, just friends and other people in the business world too.
Nice. How did you guys practically protect your giving or incorporate it as a part of your financial strategy? I mean, what was the evolution of it? And because I know it's a lot of people we advise, we want to help them give well, but in our advising, we start to realize, maybe they struggle to have even a financial strategy that allows them to give well. What was helpful for you guys? What's some practical tips you got?
What was really helpful for us that was, I guess, more not formulaic, but more just something that we were able to walk through together was the master's program. And so that's like a Christian leadership program that I did in my mid-20s. And there's it's 12 sessions over 3 years. And it's basically like getting a strong foundation on your life, every part of your life. So your physical fitness, your relational fitness, your spiritual fitness, but also there's a whole session on finances and finances from a kingdom mindset. And so I think that was really probably the first time that we'd really thought about giving to things that we were passionate about and really being very specific with our giving. And so now when we think about giving and we have our nonprofit, we try to encourage others and create a community of givers, we really try to focus on what has God uniquely made you passionate about, because we all have different backgrounds and there's just different things that he draws our hearts to. And you see that with ministries, like the people running ministries, they normally have some kind of a background in that, whatever that is, that cause. And so that's something that for Jackie and I, we're fortunate, we're very aligned on, evangelism is really important to us, and discipleship and overseas missions is really important to us. And so those are areas that we focused, and then we created goals around different ministries that we want to support, making multiple year commitments, and that evolved from us doing that, just the two of us, to doing that in more of a group setting with the nonprofit that we started, 100 Times Harvest.
Yeah, so tell us more about that. I mean, that's really cool. I know a lot of people want to do something like that, don't know how to pull the trigger. Tell us more about what it was like setting that up and how you guys operate that.
Well, I'm really fortunate. One thing that's been critical for me in my business life has been having good partners. And so I have, initially two partners, my brother Tim, who I mentioned earlier, and then David Marshall. And now we have other partners in our business. And all three of us weren't just business partners, we were doing a lot of giving together as well. And so different ministries would come to the office and we would meet with them and we would hear about, just different work being done. And we'd get really excited about that. And we kind of realized we were all supporting a lot of the same things. And so we thought, why don't we do something more, formal? We could start an organization. My dad had just retired from oil and gas after 35 years and volunteered to manage it for us. And so we said, why don't we start this organization where we can bring these really exciting projects that these ministries are bringing to us to a lot larger network. And then we can accomplish more together. We can create more accountability, because we had incredible things happen with ministries, but we'd also kind of been burned a couple of times where we had given money even to people that we felt like had been pretty vetted or were parts of vetted organizations, and then the money had just gone to things that we hadn't given to, and so we really want to come up with a better way of pooling our resources together, trying to invite more believers that maybe didn't have the time to go to Africa or that never would have been on their radar. Maybe it would be someday, but we could bring these really exciting opportunities to that are, a step beyond just, having the plate passed at church and giving to that, but then not really having any kind of connection or taking any ownership through that giving. And so we started that, and initially we would just, send out emails, invite people to different lunch and learns, and it really grew over time. And we've had, several large donors come to be a part of 100 Times Harvest. And then we've had a lot of just, donors give small amounts or give amounts to specific projects. We'll do done several recordings with Faith Comes by Hearing on new languages around the world. And so we have some members that they love to give to that, but then maybe they're not going to give to a different project, just because they're not as passionate about the cause. And that's fine. We just want to bring these really good opportunities to both, our families, but also to just a larger network within the marketplace. And that's been a lot of fun, because I think one thing I was told early on is it's not just how much money I could give personally, but it's how much money you can raise by getting others around you. And so when I met you, that's what got me really excited, was just someone else that was so passionate about gaining resources for the kingdom and, getting, especially millennials, just getting this younger generation to come up, and whether it's a small amount of money or a large amount of money, pooling that together for the impact.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that first lunch we had at Gloria's, I guess, January of last year. But yeah, super impressed with what you guys are doing. Love the giving collaborative spirit. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, we've experienced it. I mean, we're getting a bunch of All Access members here in Dallas to play pickleball with one of our partners from South Asia in a couple of weeks. And it is fun just getting a lot of people in the same room who are giving together, and you're able to make more impact than you could on your own. I mean, I think giving collaboratives, I hope they're going to be popular in the future, but you guys have already kind of modeled that out, and that's awesome, man. I love it. And what's kind of been, I mean, you mentioned being burned. I think anyone who tries to give well gets burned at some point, but I mean, what have been some of those instances, and you don't have to, definitely don't name organizations, but I mean, I'd love for you to just go in more detail about those experiences and ways that we can help avoid it, or lessons learned from those.
Yeah, fortunately, there haven't been very many, so I'm really thankful for that. I think it's hard to know or to just generally say how to avoid them. There's things we try to do. For one thing, we've learned to vet more on the front end, and a lot of that is through even just vetting, relationally. What are some other references they would have, people that maybe we would know? We've learned not to give directly to anyone anymore. For example, just someone in Africa, but to give through a vetted organization, so that there's not that direct link. Because as you know, every time you go overseas, you create these incredible bonds, but then you just start getting bombarded with needs because there's so many needs. And so it's really hard, and you feel really bad and kind of guilty not to give, because it could even just be give me $20 a month or something really, really minimal. But unfortunately, I think that's where a lot of the problems happen, is when there's just the direct giving. And so we had that happen in Africa, where we had given, and the guy was running kind of a lot of different exciting projects. And he just decided, even though we very specifically said we wanted to go to this project, he was kind of running a for-profit project that he was trying to use to fund the rest of his ministry. And he just kind of decided he was going to move the money over there. And, that was really concerning for us because, for one thing, we didn't really see the viability of what he was trying to do, which is why we weren't giving to that. But then also it just created that lack of trust that in the future he wouldn't do the exact same thing. And so fast forward, met a really good friend from Tanzania on a trip to Africa and really believed in the work he was doing. He was moving back from the South Africa area to Tanzania to start a church, but found a ministry that we could give to through, that would then be able to support him and he could become a part of what they were doing versus just giving directly to him. And so that's been one way that we found that, has worked for us in those instances. And then another one that happened that was different was like a stateside ministry where, we're giving a lot of times larger amounts of money with 100 times harvest. And so with that comes more accountability where you can ask more questions and where there's more time that these ministries are willing to spend and more that they're willing to kind of show and turn over. And we had a really surprising situation happen where a guy kind of was ministry hopping and we didn't know. And so we gave a pretty significant amount of money based off of a lot of information that could have been accurate, but we didn't know that he was leaving that organization and then was planning to take a lot of those resources with him to his new organization. And so fortunately, the leadership that stepped in after he left, kind of made everything right. But some of these situations are difficult and tough. And so a lot of times, we try to start with smaller gifts and kind of build up the trust and not just go, straight into these larger gifts because unfortunately there's so many ministries doing good work. But then there's also, ministries that aren't doing very good work or that tend to take advantage of people too.
Yeah. It's hard. I was talking to some wealth advisors a few days ago, and I don't know how off I was on this comparison, but it reminds me of investing in stocks, 50, 60 years ago, or whenever it seemed crazy to invest money in a company you don't personally know. Now it's it's a normal thing. Millions, hundreds of millions of people do it every day. But in the giving space, we don't have any tools and things like that to help people do it. Even if those are some of the most effective and highest ROI ministries, they're just wasn't somebody not only to find them, but also to manage it, to monitor it for groups. That's one of the reasons we started. But you're right. It's hard to do it. To give well is definitely not easy or quick. But on the flip side of that, what are some things you guys have given to that was incredible? It just was really exciting for you guys.
Yeah, we've supported a lot of organizations like, Faith Comes by Hearing that you'd be familiar with, but our passion a lot of times is supporting smaller organizations that almost kind of like a venture capitalist, not that they're startups, but that some of them are smaller and they just don't have the network or the donor base. And we like to come alongside organizations and kind of ask the what if, like what if you had $50,000 or $100,000 to go do something, to do a breakthrough project that you just, you don't even really think that big because, you're just trying to get by with what you're currently doing. And so one of my favorites to talk about is one that it came out of these trips we were doing to the Middle East and some books that we were reading that were really changing our lives. It was some books that were just stories of Muslims becoming Christians, and just the stories were so powerful of dreams and visions and miracles and what God was doing. And these were true stories, things happening over the last decade or so. And reading a lot about just these movements happening across the world like never before, of just huge groups of Muslims coming to Christianity. And so we were talking to one of the authors of one of these books, and we had traveled with him, and we're really impacted. We were like, we have to take this to more of like a media platform. The books are awesome. We love the books, but what if we could film these people, like film these real stories? And so this was probably around the time 100 Times Harvest was starting. So this was like our first project. And it was really fun because it was just an idea. I remember being at Whole Foods and just like having coffee and talking about like, what if we could do this? And we were looking at things like I Am Second and what they had done with stories of like athletes. And we just we're like, even if we could just get these stories out, I'm sure people will listen to them. We'll see. And so fast forward, we got the first stories out probably around, I think it was 2019 or so. And now this channel, it's called I Found the Truth, has like 3.5 million subscribers, which is incredible. And most of the subscribers are overseas. And there's a ton of content now, tons of stories of, again, just former Muslims getting on and telling their story of conversion and how they come to Christ. And so, I mean, and we're not taking credit for what they've done. I mean, the stories are what's incredible. God's work is what's incredible. In the ministry, a really good friend of mine, Dosch, runs that now, and I took that on. And so it's just fun though to be a part of that, like to know that because we were kind of there and available and thinking that way, and God allowed us to be a part of that. I think that's what's fun about generosity, is being a part of it. It's not guilt. And I say that a lot because like I grew up in a Christian home. My parents are awesome, but it was pretty rules based. And so I knew tithing was important, but it was always kind of like right or wrong. And the focus was more in my mind, and not to say my parents were doing this is how I interpreted it, but the focus was more on like, I just need to give this much money, this percentage of money. And it wasn't really about like the heart behind what God was doing with it and how incredible it is and how much more fulfilling that is and being a part of that than going and buying something else or something for myself. And so it's just every time I watch those videos, it just reminds me of how exciting it is to get to be a part of that. And then that's just, one of the different projects we've gotten to do.
Yeah, man, that's why I wanted people to hear your perspective and what you're doing, Tom, because you're right. I feel like a lot of us have that perspective on giving, is like, I do it to feel less guilty about the way I live my life, or maybe we just think the Bible tells us, hey, this is what we have to do. I wrote my thesis paper in grad school on the tithe, but I love what you're doing, and I love the perspective you have, and that's what we're trying to encourage people to do. The Christian life is we're being redeemed by Jesus and joining Jesus in redeeming the world, being a part of what he's doing, and our giving is an asset to be used in doing that. It's a helpful tool to help us do that, and I love it, man. Love what you guys are doing. It's pretty cool.
Thanks. Well, it's been awesome to get to know you. I think Steve Calipers, who I can give credit to for introducing us. He's introduced me to some great people, but really appreciate him introducing 100 Times Harvest to you and All Access. And it's been really fun to get to know you and become a member. We see it as a great resource, and the work you do is hard, but it's definitely needed. And it's incredible to see just how you're stewarding so many people's resources for the kingdom.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Tom. It's a partnership, and it's a lot of fun. I'm humbled every time I go to the field, and we have a long way to go, but I'm super encouraged by guys like you who are on this mission, already kind of doing it themselves, and we just get to come alongside and do it with you guys. So it's cool. What excites you the most? What's next for you guys? What gets you fired up?
Gosh, we live in such an incredible time. I know around the Christian world, everyone talks about like fulfilling the Great Commission and, having actual, Bible in every language for the first time, like having scripture. So it's hard not to get excited about just the work being done to reach unreached people groups. And like I said, just, statistically, at least what I'm reading and kind of believing that these statistics are true, that you're seeing people come to Christ like never before, since the church. So I think that gets us really excited. The ministries that we meet, I just met with the ministry a couple weeks ago in McKinney that's doing incredible work. And so, just getting to meet new ministries, hear their hearts, getting to hear the stories. It's, I think for me, a lot of times I'm ready to just kind of like drop what I'm doing and want to go and be a full-time over there with them, doing what they're doing. And, what I've learned is God has a purpose for me where I am. And I'm getting to, help in ways that it would be really different if I was, over somewhere in Africa, which would be great. But, I've been mentored by, people I really respect to say like, hey, until you're sure God calls you to that, like make sure you're doing what he's calling you to now, which is, really helping impact people in different ways. So, I'm excited for when my kids are a little bit older. I probably shouldn't say that because I never supposed to enjoy the phase we're in, because I'm really excited to take them overseas and to do more of that together. So my older brother's doing that now with his kids because they're 5 or so years ahead in age than mine. And it's just really been transformational in their lives, going down to Colombia and working, down there in really difficult situations, but just being really impacted by what God's doing. So that's something that'll be just on a personal though, like really exciting when I get to take my kids to see some of the things that Jack and I have gotten to see, and just meet some of these people that are so incredible around the world that have so little, but their joy is just like so much more than anything you experience here because they're so fulfilled in Christ.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to that day as well when we can take our kids, and I love it. It's a wild journey, but I love seeing people get their families involved, and some of the places we work aren't the most safest in the world.
Yeah,
some of them we can, and I'm trying to get more members over to the field to see it, because you're right. I mean, once you see it, it's hard not to be a part of it. I mean, the need is so great, and you're right. We are accelerating this mission. There's some exciting things happening. I 100% believe extreme spiritual and physical poverty can end our lifetime if we want it to. I mean, the data's there, the resources are there. It won't be easy, but I do think it's possible. And so we're going to keep trucking along on that mission and see what we can do.
I'd love to get over there with you. I know I told you that with
let's go.
Your trip you just took. I would have loved to have gone. It didn't work out, but yeah, we need to try to make that happen, because I'd love to go over there with you.
Yeah, let's do it. Next time I'll give you more of a heads up. But well, cool, Tom. Well, I appreciate you, man. This has been a lot of fun doing this with you. Thanks for your perspective and your heart. I mean, you remind me of suffering, to be honest. Of a lot of people, when they think about suffering, they think about, it's the person who goes to Africa and lives over there and is on the front lines of this mission. But what they often forget about are those who are here in the States who really want to be over there. I mean, I would love to be back in Haiti. But if the most effective thing we can do is be here and grind it out in the day-to-day, live below our means when all of our friends are living above our own means, so that we can help be a part of what God's doing over there. If that's the most loving thing we can do to help those people, then that's what we should do. And so you're doing that, Tom. Love what you're doing. Thanks for being a part of All Access, and appreciate you taking the time to jump on this call.
Thanks, Lane. Thanks for having me on.
All right, man. I'll see you when you get back in Dallas.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye.
Tom.